Okay, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I am Mark Monaghan, the Assistant Principal for Sixth Form at the Sir Robert Woodard Academy. And thank you for joining us. It's good to see that actually have quite a few people live with us. We have also here with us Josh Andane. Good evening, Josh. How are we doing?
Good evening, Mark. Yeah, very good, thank you. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Good. So now we'll aim to get you all out of here in about half an hour. But we always think this time of the year, it's a really important moment to just connect with you all and just help you with that transition from being a parent of a student who is in year 11 and now you're a parent of a student who is in year 12 or possibly also year 13. And this evening is appropriate for both students in year 12 and year 13. So let's have a look at kind of what the sort of objectives are for today. So we're going to have a quick look at, well, actually, we'll look at who we are first. So I've said I'm Mr. Monaghan, or Mark Monaghan, the Assistant Principal. We're really grateful that now Josh Andane has joined us as the Pastoral Director of Sixth Form, which means that he is the kind of the day-to-day person that is dealing with students, supporting them with all the kind of needs they have around their learning, any other issues that come up to ensure that they have all those barriers taken away from stopping them from getting on and succeeding in their learning. Some of you will remember that Mrs. Everett was with us, and her role is very much the curriculum director. So looking at the kind of background, working with teachers to make sure the teaching and curriculum is as good as it can be, working out things like timetable and that sort of stuff. And of course, Miss Squires, I've just made a bit of a booby there, who you'll know as our careers advisor and W6 support, who works with students directly, but also works with them very closely in terms of their advice for progressing onto university and to their careers. And then, of course, we have our tutor team, and these people will be, in most instances, your first port of call. So whichever tutor group your child is in, this is the person that you'll contact first if there's any issues around any issues they're finding with their timetables or any kind of issues in the academy. So B6, Mr. Keegan, and we've got a share there with Martin and Ali on D6, Claire Clark on L6. A new addition to the team is Miss Jessica Lomas for the Mandela team, and then Mr. Peter O'Brien, who lots of you will already remember. So the program for this evening, I will get out of the way pretty quickly and hand over to Josh, but it's really about helping you understand the expectations and how things work in sixth form, because even though we are in the same school, just that step up to sixth form is quite fundamentally different and has its own challenges and also has its own opportunities. So Josh will talk a lot about opportunities available. We'll talk you through just some of the key dates that happen over the year. Obviously, they will all come out later in the year as well, so you won't be expected to remember them all now. And then I'll just do a little piece at the end just about some of the university and careers guidance that students get. So that's particularly important for students in year 13, but also something for year 12s to really to look forward to. And then there will be an opportunity for question and answers. And the way that it will work here is that if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can simply pop a comment on one of those two platforms or pop through to us. And then if there's questions that we think we haven't answered, we'll pick them up most likely at the end. And hopefully you can come away from this and kind of have everything that you need. I will also put a copy of these particular slides, which have things like the dates and contacts and stuff on there. They'll end up in the kind of comment section, the info box on the bottom of this YouTube video when it is available after this broadcast. So I've said about the questions. We'll probably address them at the end if we can. And just lastly, for parents, I guess it's useful to know a lot of this is information that will probably wash over you right now. So we have on our website, there is a section called Information for Sixth Form Parents. So you can, of course, just search for it, but it is also under the Sixth Form menu. And we just have as much information as we can there about the life in the Sixth Form, any important information such as the dress code, the courses on offer, bursaries and things like that. So I am going to disappear for a minute and pass you over to Josh. All yours, Josh.
Cheers, Mark. Yeah, I've been at the Academy for 8 years now, and during that time, the biggest pleasure I've had, professionally speaking, has been working with sixth formers. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joining this team. And I'm also joining on the back of some of the best results we've ever had. I do believe we've got quite an elite mentality in many of our sixth formers now. And yeah, the results this year prove that. We've been incredibly successful getting students into Oxford very recently, and we're hoping to get our first students into Cambridge this year as well. We've had our first student successfully get into medicine. That's Lewis Power there, our former head student. So I am committed to sixth formers, and like I said, I'm delighted to be working with them this year. I do believe that we are a high performance sixth form, and what's beneficial for you students and for the parents is that because we're a fairly small sixth form with quite a large teaching staff, we have some incredible links both with universities, with employers. For example, one student was speaking to me about how much they want to be a games designer. I was like, oh my God, I know someone who works for Epic Games who makes Fortnite. So we are, and this is the part I love, is there's really tangible outcomes for sixth formers that I can help them achieve. But for us to achieve that, we do need to kind of inspire the kids together to have their ambitions very clearly stated to us early on. And if they're not particularly committed to a career, then choose one early on and we'll help them try it out. Because of the small class sizes, we do have some exceptional teachers, and all departments achieve the best results we've achieved for a long time in this academy. And also, it's about 100 students in the sixth form, and there's 10 members of staff working with them. So there is a huge support network. But in return, we do expect high performance from the students. And the first thing to say, which is a no-brainer, is students do need to be here. It is a bit different from GCSE. And I remember when I was 16, the step up from all day, every day, being told where to be, what time to be, what work to do, what homework to do, getting told off if I didn't do the homework. From having that at GCSE to then losing that a bit at A-level and having suddenly a couple of hours a day of independence, deadlines that teachers didn't really enforce, and it was kind of up to me. So I found that transition quite hard. So having the support around them to make sure that they don't make the mistakes I made is quite important here. Obviously, we expect them to work hard. I'm a big believer that the most successful people in any field throughout history, they've got there through organized hard work and through reflection. It's not through natural talents or natural gifts. So the best students in our academy at sixth form, they'll be using the support, they'll be asking for help. And it's really clear. That's why we're so confident in teaching that, all year 11 students with 95% plus attendance, they achieved at least half a grade above national average. So you turn up, you'll get the good results. It is still very important, because I know sometimes parents kind of grapple with the difference here. They feel like, okay, they're at sixth form now, I'm going to treat them as adults. But there is still like a transition here. Very important to call in any absence such as illness in the same way that I would do that as an employee of the academy. We need to know why students aren't in. It's important for our records. It's important for the government. And likewise, planned absences, they need to come in advance in the same way that you would plan your absence from work. It's also, we do get sometimes that the cohort around Lancing, a very hard-working community, and it translates into the students. So many students have part-time jobs, and so many students are quite keen to start driving as early as possible, which is great to see. But the priority needs to be lessons. They can't sacrifice lessons for part-time jobs. And we have tried to make the process simpler for signing in and signing out. So there is a sign-in app that students need to use, which all members of staff in the academy do have access to. It's particularly important particularly for fire bells as well. Like if we have a fire and the students aren't in the building and they haven't signed out, it's a big problem for us. So the way parents can support with this high performance, particularly for year 12s as we get them into the right frame of mind, is please keep us informed as much as possible about how your child is settled in, whether they're doing much work at home, whether they need a bit more support. Really have those conversations with them about what careers they want, if they're making the most out of enrichment, or whether they're just basically sat around struggling to deal with the amount of free time they've got. And there are some learning behaviours that we will be keen to hammer home with the students. So being an effective learner is a big part of my job this year. And this is, like I said, when I was a student, I found this quite a big jump up, because some days students will have 3 or 4 hours of completely independent study. And that is difficult, especially after having the 2-month summer holiday and then GCSEs, which is just so relentless. I mean, many of your children are in school from 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock every single day with clear lists of what they should do. You won't have that as much as sixth form. So it's very important that they use that time rather than sat there on TikTok looking at cats or whatever. There'll be a lot of set tasks. Teacher feedback as well. So important. When you get feedback on your work, it's really important that if you respond to the feedback, in history, redo the essay. And I think many of you might be in a similar generation to me regarding exams. So like I had to do half of my exams at the end of year 12 and then the other half at the end of year 13, which actually made my life a lot easier to balance as an academic. And it meant that I could forget almost about the year 12's worth of work because I'd already got those qualifications in the bag. Students now don't have that. We teach them 2 years worth of stuff. And in most subjects, they get assessed on all that 2 years worth of learning at the end of year 13. So if they don't start revising straight away in year 12, they'll find they get to this time next year in year 13 and they've got a mountain of work to do. And that also ties in really closely with the levels of organisation. I've been insistent to all tutors that they make sure year 12s have all their folders up to speed, all their dividers in place for the next 2 years, or for the next year at least. Because if they start falling into bad habits of organisation, we'll get to a point when they just won't be able to revise and things will start falling by the wayside. I've really enjoyed my year 12 lessons this year as a teacher because they're so interested. They ask questions, they get involved, and I really regret not doing this as a young person myself. If I just asked my teachers questions, I wouldn't have been sat there bored. If I challenged my teachers' opinions, lessons would have been so much more interesting. So I do encourage all young people to be a bit bolshy about challenging their teachers and asking questions, and they'll enjoy the experience a lot more. So just a point on being organised then, like they really do need to have folders ready at the moment. We do have some spares in sixth form if they need it. We do have some dividers, but they really need to have some paper folders. We have got quite a profound online system as well for organising them, but pen, paper, folders are incredibly, incredibly useful, especially because most of the exams will be with pen and paper. Likewise, good equipment. I get quite excited when I buy a new pen, like a nice new Sharpie. It gives me a bit of a motivation to stay on top of my work. And at home as well, it's quite hard this. My house wasn't particularly big when I was a student, but I did have my own room and my parents were insistent I had a tidy workspace. And that did make a difference to my levels of organisation. If you're living in a bit of a messy place, it is quite hard to have that organised attitude to what are quite difficult academic subjects. And likewise, time management. I've said this quite a lot to young people. Like, it's a chance to figure out like when you're productive, whether you're more productive in the mornings, and then you can afford to give yourself a bit of an afternoon off sometimes, whether you prefer working in the evenings, whether you'd rather just get it all done at sixth form before you go home and just completely have a space at home that's yourself. So the first few weeks before all the deadlines start coming thick and fast is a chance to practice what's good for you in terms of time management. There's also a bit of a misconception about the academy day in sixth form compared to GCSE. So we're not 8:50 to 3 in sixth form, we're 8:50 to 4. And that's because so many teachers in our sixth form, they do teach all different year groups. I teach 6 year groups, I think. So for many, lessons are at 3 till 4. I think in other colleges as well, sometimes they go up to 6 o'clock in the evening. And I think the way I'd approach it if I was a year 12 now is I'd try and be in the building from 8:50 till 4 o'clock. And I'd try and get all my work done during that time. They are allowed to pop out during the day, absolutely. But remember that you have to use the sign in and the sign out app to get out of the building. Very important for our fire drills. All of them now, all the timetables, all the clashes, Miss Everett especially, has spent a long time finalising their timetable, so they've got the subjects that they want to be on. I recommend they print it off and they sit there, and where it says stuff like independent study, I would actually put in what subjects I will do my revision for, what subjects I'll spend that time doing the wider reading. Like in history, for example, we have 9 periods a fortnight, but realistically it should be 18 periods a fortnight that you're thinking about history, maybe a little bit less, because there's so much reading to do. And if you see there on Wednesday at period 5, we've got that enrichment slot as well, which for the time being, so there's 3 enrichment slots a fortnight, and we're going to keep as many of them as compulsory for the time being, because we're really trying to set them up into good learning habits. But then eventually there'll be a point when students can start using their enrichment time for something that will benefit them academically or in their wider career. The tutor team in sixth form are great, and many of your children or you young people, you might have had interesting experiences of tutor time where you're essentially sat in a class of 30 students and there's messages being forced down your throat, or there'll be some kind of videos about World War I or assemblies. Now, tutor time is a bit different, and from next week, year 12s will not have to come to every single tutor time unless we have some kind of concerns about their attendance or their engagement. And then on a Wednesday morning will be when tutor time is compulsory for both year 12 and for year 13 students. But tutors are a bit different to what they were last time. Tutors are essentially academic mentors. They're UCAS guides, they're coaches, they are a shoulder to cry on if you're finding things particularly difficult. And they will arrange in tutor slots going forward, one-to-one academic mentoring slots. And these sessions are absolutely invaluable for writing your personal statement, for, if you tell your tutor, you know what, I'm really ambitious, I want to be a sports psychologist. And then your tutor will latch onto that and sit down with you and plan the next 5-10 years of your career. So it's such a useful tool. And what I don't want is a situation where year 12s and 13s think that tutor time is just a waste of time, or they're angry they've got to come in for 8:50 even though they've not got a lesson till 11. Like, just come in at 8:50, go to tutor time, and then you've got a couple of hours in the morning where you can catch up on some work. So tutor time is a very, very valuable part of the day. But like everything we do at Woodard, it's valuable if you make the most of it. So we do still expect that your attendance is up to 95%. I mean, that's for me, the expectation is 100%. But of course, we have stuff like illnesses and stuff. And particularly important is that we look at it lesson by lesson, because we do sometimes spot there's a weird thing where students start avoiding particular lessons or particular times of the day. So we do monitor lesson attendance every single week. I sit down on a Tuesday of all tutors and we do look at attendance. And if we start having concerns that you're dropping off, we will kick in pretty fast and make sure you stay longer in the school building so that we can kind of guide you through your lessons, your study, because we don't want you to slip off the radar and be in the middle of year 13 thinking, oh my God, I've got so much to catch up on. And this is fair. This is standard for all colleges. Uniform is, I don't want to dwell on uniform. Like, I do like treating you like adults. Look smart, sensible choices. There is a lot of psychology behind the fact that actually if you dress to impress, it does give you a certain level of confidence and organization. So if you wouldn't wear it to a job interview, don't wear it to Woodard, is what I would suggest. You can check the website for the full thing. Induction periods. I do hope your young people have been enjoying the lessons so far. There will be some baseline tests coming up just to see how well they're doing, but we're not going to stick you to a course for 2 years now if you're not enjoying the course, if you haven't found it useful, or if you've changed your career plan. But it's worth saying there is a final cutoff at the start of October, so 2 weeks away. And the reason for this final cutoff is because if you're already a month behind your course, it is problematic. If you're more than a month, it's almost impossible to catch up. So please bear that in mind. Now is the time to have conversations with me and Miss Everett and Miss Squires about which courses are right for you, whether you're enjoying it. We don't want you just floating along because you feel like you don't want to have a conversation about it. The earlier you change your course, the better. I can't stress that enough. So you don't have to necessarily absorb these key dates now or write them down, because they will be in the comments at the end of it. But these dates will come thick and fast. So for year 13s, you have mocks before Christmas, and then you have mocks in February. I can't stress enough how important it is to see these as the real thing. So go into them with a revision timetable, an exam timetable, practice them, get used to what it is to balance all your different subjects through exams. If you take these 2 mock periods seriously, often you go up a grade in each until your final exam, because you practice it twice when you got your 3rd exam, which is the real thing. You do not want to go into your actual A-level exams on a dry run. You want to know what it's like to revise. You want to practice it. You want to make mistakes. And then you want to crucially improve on your best rather than improve on your worst from your mocks. And likewise with year 12s. So we have had your GCSEs, which are a bit of a baseline, but all subjects will be doing some kind of baseline testing in the next week or so, where they basically see like what you like, how far the summer's affected your literacy, your written work, your ability to revise, your motivation. So it's really important you take these baseline tests seriously. And then at the end of year 12, you have some very important mocks, because we do use that data to start considering like what universities you would be aiming for. And then to aid with all of this, we do have a parents' evening on the 23rd of March where we invite you guys in. It'd be nice to have you in the building, actually, and just talk about the progress so far. And it won't just be a case of like how it was in lower years where it's like, I need to work harder or I need to do this homework. We don't really want to be telling people off. We want to be having conversations about what they're good at academically, what career they want, how we can find them some work experience for their career, what their EPQ is about for enrichment. So bear those dates in mind. And then just on enrichment, this is the thing I've enjoyed most so far about working in sixth form. And I really, really don't want sixth formers to find this as a burden. I want them to find enrichment as something academically quite stimulating, something that gives them something to talk about in an interview that's a little bit different from someone else. So we do have 3 periods booked into their timetables every fortnight. I'm going to make it as relevant to them as possible and hopefully as interesting as possible, where we'll be talking about stuff that we have to because it's government guidance. So things like healthy relationships and the dangers of drugs. But also we'll use this time to show you how to write an incredible reference for university, what universities are out there. We're going to be bringing in experts. The guy we had yesterday, I thought he did speak for quite a while, but what he was saying I thought was fascinating. If students make the most of the EPQ offer we have, which is the extended project qualification, they might literally be working with the James Webb satellite telescope, working with NASA. Like one person who did an enrichment incredibly well, they produced an app to help with dementia because their grandma had dementia. So the enrichment sessions are not just a place where kids go and just stare into space. It's not something that you avoid. It's supposed to be incredibly useful for your future, for your career, or make you think in a slightly different way. And part of that as well is, so you do go to a college that's attached to a school, and many are using that as an opportunity to actually volunteer, to help out. We've got some young people who are incredibly keen to act as essentially like mentors to year 7s. We've got, I think, 7 other year 12s who suggested they would love to work on the reading techniques of year 7s in the library. I've suggested to one other student that they act as a sports psychologist for a year 9 basketball team. So volunteering not only gives you practice for the world of work, but it also gives you a sense of community, which is incredibly good for your mental health. So that's it from me. Mark, I'll hand this over to you.
Thank you very much, Josh. So I just want to have a quick chat to you about perhaps some of the differences in terms of technology and how that can support independent study. So firstly, students can bring their own devices into sixth form. So that could be their phone, their iPad, a laptop. We do have Wi-Fi in place for students. So there are instructions in the sixth form building where they can get support on how to connect to that. And then, of course, we do suggest that students have that, because during those times when they don't have lessons, that independent learning time, having access to a laptop or a device is incredibly useful and makes that time a lot more productive. And what we've done this year on the back of a lot of the work that happened with the government last year, and they gave quite a lot of Chromebooks to schools to support with lockdown. So we've thought actually there's a stock of devices that are Chromebooks, so basically kind of Google Chrome based laptops that we can actually offer to sixth form students as a year-long loan. So basically they'll borrow it from us. It will just be checked out on the library system. We will call them back in just at the end of the year just to try and check them all over. And if they're continuing into year 13, then they're able to check those out again. So it's just to support that independent learning and taking away any barriers from accessing the resources that students will need to really just to kind of further their learning. So The good thing with Chromebooks really is that perhaps unlike some of the computers all of us have used in the past, they are designed to be fast and have incredibly long battery life. So actually, if a student charges it at home and brings it in, they will get 10 hours life out of it without having to be constantly plugged into a socket, as some of us experience on a daily basis with a shoddy work laptop. We do use a system called Canvas. So lots of you may have experienced either directly with your students, helping them with homework, or perhaps during lockdown where they were using Google Classroom. So Canvas is very similar to that, but very much next level. So it's a product that's used worldwide in universities, from Sussex University, Oxford, the University of Melbourne, my university, and it's there really to support students to have their courses online, their access resources that they need. And also when Josh was talking about, there's opportunities for students to be doing extra reading, extra research. So having that platform there. And as the year progresses, we'll then also look at where we can make the particular part of your child's Canvas site available to parents as well. So you can get a bit of a sense of the resources available to them for studying, revising, and also the level of work that's being set for students as well. Now, something that we are really quite committed to is students applying to university. Now, we know it's not for everybody. And nationally, it's kind of between 40 and 50% of students apply and successfully progress to university. But we think just the process itself, it sets students up for just applying for a job in particular. But we do think that having that kind of end goal of potentially going to university, we think is a really good option for students. And so we really support them throughout their time here, particularly the second half of year 12 and then right into year 13. So we do ask students to investigate courses, and that might just help students decide on a university program they want to follow. But similarly, it could also just identify a career they want to go into, where they progress directly after sixth form onto that career. But just that process of exploring, we think, is really helpful for students to get a sense of what's out there, because I think all of us, our experience of school is that the subjects available is quite limited. But you look at university and just the breadth of things that people can study is really quite mind-blowing. So we really encourage students to get involved in that process and really look at what's out there and what's possible. So the whole process really begins with we work with students on how to find courses, looking at universities, looking at them locally all across the country. We then support with how to write that personal statement. And that's a really good tool just for preparation for a job application as well, writing about their own strengths, their own interests, why they're interested in a particular course. We then support them with the actual application, and we're making sure that all the kind of T's are crossed and I's are dotted. And then we also support them through that process of when they receive offers, and then we're there also for them on results day in August, hopefully to kind of say good luck at university, but sometimes it's also helping them with making last minute changes and going through that process you might have heard of called clearing. And we do provide a lot of resources with students through Canvas, just so that everything they need is there, so that we can really kind of signpost various things for them. And if events come up, so lots of universities now offer online events, so lots of virtual things like this where they can go along and just explore a department, perhaps even do a campus tour virtually, as well as live events now where students can go and visit a campus. So we will populate this as best we can with all the opportunities that come up. And particularly as we get towards summer, lots of universities will offer summer schools for students, and particularly if a student is the first in their family to go to university, quite often those are free, including free accommodation and free transport, and give students an opportunity to taste university life for a whole week, free of charge, and really get a sense of where they think they would fit in that kind of process. We also help them then with, we get sent so many prospectuses, so actually having a look at all those courses, what the universities look like. But then there is the UCAS website itself, which hosts every single degree course in the United Kingdom. And then obviously we can look at the university websites themselves. We take the students out to the Brighton Centre later in the year, where pretty much every single university in the country turns up and puts up a stall so that students can go and speak to either academics or student ambassadors from those universities. And as I mentioned, there's often lots of virtual tours and summer schools as well. I've talked a bit about the personal statement, but it's really about that opportunity for students to start to talk about, here's what I'm studying, here's why I think I'm going to be appropriate for this course. This is really why. The people who read these personal statements are often the academics that deliver these courses. These induction tutors are often the people that might be teaching history or computer science or games design. So they really want to hear your passion, and bringing in, like Josh said, all those different extracurricular things you've done in enrichment that really shows that you have a passion for a subject and you've really gone beyond the classroom. And then we guide them through that whole process, going on to ucas.com, putting in their choices, 5 choices. We then, as an academy, work with the teachers to put together their reference and predicted grades, and then students pay a small fee, which is around, I think, £25 at the moment for that application. And then as we go through, there's usually a deadline, which I'll tell you about in a moment, and then students start to get offers. And you'll kind of hear this language coming through. So they'll get what's called conditional offers, which means that we'll give you a place, but you've got to get particular grades. Some might be unconditional. They are declining in number, and there's a little bit of a kind of public way kind of swell against those, because people feel that students kind of switch off once they've got that. That basically means we'll take you whatever grade you get. So some students start to see, well, it doesn't matter what I get, and they start to kind of take the foot off and maybe don't achieve as well as they do. And then students will choose which institutions they want to accept. So they have an insurance one, which is a backup, and then there's that firm choice, which is the one that they definitely want to go to if they get the grades. So deadlines for all of this. So if there's any year 13s watching, we have already kind of beaten them over the head with this, but the personal statement really is pretty much due now. We started that last academic year. So that really is a matter of getting that done, working with the tutors. In that tutor time we talked about, really refining that, making that application really sing. And then we say the final application date for all students to have that personal statement finished, and then also the online application completed, is the 14th of October. Now, you might see on emails you receive or other things that there's a deadline for January. That is true. But there's a couple of things behind that. One is, as soon as a student submits their application, that's not the end of it. We then have a long process of that referencing with the teachers, the tutors then combining all of that into one sort of unified reference that sort of speaks in one voice, getting the best kind of predicted grades that we think a student can really confidently achieve to give them the best opportunity of getting offers, but not so far out that the offers are then pulled away on results day because it's just too ambitious. And so then also, not just the January deadline, but we also then try and send them as soon as they're done. So if students are complete in October, we'll give them as fast a turnaround as possible so that universities can actually start making an offer. Now, if students are applying to Oxford or Cambridge, or what's called a conservatoire, which is a sort of specialist performing arts institution, then their actual final deadline for us as well is in October. So if your child is in that position, they should pretty much be done so that we can now be putting the final touches on their application and getting those sent off, and fingers crossed, then getting interviews and offers coming through. Year 12s, the year will fly, and then by the time we get to the other side of Christmas, and then we start to then look at that kind of personal statement. We look around Easter, where actually that personal statement is in pretty good shape and pretty much done. And then again, the 2023, which is terrifying to think of that year, the final application then is for year 12 as well. So we will, of course, through just the normal parent communications that go out, share these dates, and there'll be lots of updates about what's expected. So there's no need to remember all those dates now. And then, I will just fly through this, but really, we just help the students understand what the UCAS website looks like, how to find courses. There's information about what the course offers. There's even some great information about student satisfaction. So there's big kind of national surveys of students to see how much they like the university. So students can really see, oh, this course is good, but students didn't really like it, or vice versa. And then it also gives the really critical things about entry requirements. So just like getting onto sixth form, the next level at university, students will need certain entry requirements. And some of those might actually be GCSE requirements. So for some courses, they might need to see certain grades in sciences, for example, like a 7 or 8. So all that kind of comprehensive information we share with the students, how to find that out and really guide them through that process. And we do say, I think just to finish off on that, some students go through that process and say, oh, I'm not going to apply because of money. We will do some sessions with students later on about the realities of student finance, but we shouldn't be looking at university as a kind of financial burden. It's very much a kind of no win, no fee kind of situation. You know, if you do well out of university, then you'll pay for it. If you don't necessarily enhance your salary as a result, you pay very little, possibly nothing. And then the last thing from me, this is actually for me is a really important thing. One of my roles is actually overseeing the whole careers provision for the academy. And working with a lot of employers, they just say the one critical thing is that so many students come to them, school leavers, without realistic kind of expectations, but also no experience of the modern workplace. So it is a government requirement that across the entire country, every single year 12 has to be involved in a meaningful work placement. And what we mean by meaningful is it can't be your KFC part-time job that you already do. It's got to be something that really links to the courses you're doing. And ideally, something that's going to be really ambitious. You want to work in a big office for a big global firm, we'll help you get there. You want to go and work in a primary school because that's your absolute dream, then fine. But it's really about giving students that opportunity to have a really amazing opportunity for 1 week to go into a real workplace. It could be local. Last year, we had students go off into London working in international recording industry companies. So, you know, there's lots of really big opportunities. But we do kind of say to students that even though it is in July, so the 3rd to the 7th of July for year 12s, and it will be in person, it really is good to start thinking about that now. So if you have your own personal contacts, then brilliant. But between all of us in the academy, we have so many connections that we can start locking you in now, because July is a very kind of high peak time, particularly at the end of July, where lots of colleges will send thousands of students out across all of Sussex. So get thinking about that now. And if there's something you're really committed to and committed, you know, kind of pursuing in your career, then let us know and we can work with you to get into a placement that will support either you progressing into that job or into university. And again, all of that will give lots of resources for students on places to find placements if they can't do it themselves. And we'll kind of track and monitor how they're getting on with that. So I guess it's just lastly, if there's any questions that anyone might have, then now is the time to kind of pop those in the chat. Otherwise, we'll kind of say farewell. So I think, Josh, we've kind of, is there anything you think we've left out that we've not covered?
All good.
But yeah, so I think we've kind of covered pretty much everything. But if there is any questions you have, we've got, you know, sort of a minute or so left. We said half an hour, we're on 40 minutes, so not far off. Otherwise, I think we'll say good evening, have a good night, and thank you for joining us. And of course, if there's something you think of when we're finished, then feel free to just drop us an email at the academy and someone will pick that up and get back to you. Josh, thanks for your time tonight.
Pleasure.
Thank you everyone for joining us. It's good to see so many people here tonight, and we'll see you all soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.